The Orion prospect drifted in the cold expanse of the asteroid belt, its massive hull glinting faintly against the light of distant stars. On board, the hum of machinery mingled with the sharp voices of miners and scientists. This was supposed to be just another routine extraction, one more mission in the endless pursuit of rare metals to fuel Earth's insatiable industries. But no one on the Orion realized they were about to unearth something far beyond their comprehension. "Drill status?" Captain Darren Vox asked, his voice calm but authoritative. He stood at the center of the command deck, arms crossed, his steel-gray eyes locked on the holographic display of Asteroid TX-79. "Rigs 1 through 4 are operational," replied Vega, the ship's AI, her synthetic voice smooth and precise. "Core depth is at 112 meters and increasing." Vega's efficiency was both a comfort and a warning. Machines didn't falter, but even they couldn't account for the unexpected. Vox knew this better than most. He'd been out here too long to ignore the uncanny feeling gnawing at the edge of his mind. "Captain," came a voice from the comms. It was Jace Murrow, the lead geologist stationed near the drilling rigs on TX-79. "We're picking up some weird readings down here. Nothing like the usual nickel-iron alloy or carbonaceous compounds." "What kind of readings?" Vox asked, his gaze narrowing. "Energy signatures," Jace replied, his voice uneasy. "Localized and rhythmic, almost like a signal. But it's faint, buried deeper in the rock." Vox's jaw tightened. "Could be natural phenomena. Or equipment interference." "That's what I thought," Jace said. "But it doesn't match any interference patterns. It's organized." "Organized?" The word hung heavy in the air. "Yeah, like something alive." On the asteroid's surface, Jace stood in the shadow of Rig 2, his helmet's visor glowing faintly in the dim light. Around him, miners worked in pairs, their drills boring deeper into the asteroid's surface. The constant vibration made the ground feel unstable, as if the asteroid itself might fracture beneath them. Jace knelt next to a portable scanner, the device's screen flickering with data streams. His assistant, Hannah Lee, crouched beside him, her brows furrowed. "This can't be right," she muttered, tapping the screen. "It's like the signal is responding to the drills." "Responding how?" Jace asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Watch." Hannah pointed to the waveforms. As the drills penetrated deeper, the energy spikes mirrored the vibrations, as if something beneath the surface was listening. A deep rumble suddenly resonated through the ground. Jace and Hannah froze, their heads snapping up as the miners nearby shouted in confusion. "What was that?" Jace whispered. "Seismic activity?" Hannah offered, though her voice wavered. "No way. The asteroid's too small for natural quakes," Jace said, his voice tight. Before he could process further, Rig 2's drill emitted a metallic screech, the sound so piercing it sent everyone reeling. Sparks flew from the machinery as its stabilizers buckled, and the massive arm of the rig twisted unnaturally before grinding to a halt. "Shut it down! Shut it down!" Jace yelled, scrambling to his feet. The miners around him rushed to disable the rig, their movements frantic. Then the ground split open. A jagged fissure tore through the asteroid's surface, swallowing chunks of machinery and sending miners tumbling. From the gaping chasm emerged an otherworldly light, a pulsating, bioluminescent glow that seemed alive. And then they saw it. "Emergency alert!" Vega's voice rang through the Orion prospect as seismic readings spiked off the charts. Captain Vox barely had time to brace himself before the shockwave hit, sending tremors through the ship. "What the hell is happening down there?" Vox barked, spinning toward the comms officer. "Surface activity near Rig 2, the officer replied, panic creeping into his voice. "Fissures forming. Captain, we've got visuals." The central holodisplay flickered to life, showing live footage from the miners' helmet cams. Vox leaned in, his stomach nodding as he took in the scene. The fissure was massive, and from its depths, a serpentine creature began to rise. Its body was covered in a carapace that shimmered like polished obsidian, and its eyes, if they could be called that, were glowing orbs of blue light. The creature's movements were unnervingly fluid, as though it were swimming through the vacuum. Around it, smaller creatures swarmed, their forms vaguely humanoid but twisted, their limbs elongated and insect-like. They moved with eerie precision, their glowing appendages casting an otherworldly glow on the miners who stood frozen in terror. "Are those intelligent?" Vox muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The creatures didn't leave much time to debate. One of the miners screamed as a smaller creature leapt at him, its limbs wrapping around his suit. The camera feed cut out abruptly, leaving only static. Vox slammed his fist against the console. "Get them out of there. Now." On the surface, chaos reigned. Jace and Hannah sprinted toward the evacuation shuttle as the creatures swarmed around them. The miners who hadn't been taken down were firing their plasma cutters and sidearms, but the weapons barely slowed the attackers. One of the serpentine creatures lunged toward Jace, its maw lined with razor-sharp mandibles. He dove to the side, the creature's impact shaking the ground as it missed him by inches. Hannah grabbed his arm, pulling him to his feet. "Move," she shouted, her voice raw with panic. They reached the shuttle just as the creatures began closing in. The ramp was already retracting, the pilot shouting over the comms, "We're leaving now." Jace grabbed Hannah and shoved her onto the ramp before leaping after her. The shuttle lifted off, the thrusters scorching the ground below. Through the viewport, Jace watched in horror as the creatures writhed below, their glowing forms almost hypnotic. "We're not equipped to handle this," he said, breathless. Hannah shook her head. "This isn't a mining operation anymore. This is a war zone." Back on the Orion prospect, Vox convened with his senior officers. The footage from the surface played on repeat, each viewing more harrowing than the last. The creatures were undeniably intelligent, their coordinated attacks proving they were more than mindless predators. "These things are protecting something," Jace said, addressing the room. He'd just returned from the surface, his face pale and his hands trembling. "The signals we picked up, it's them. They're communicating. The deeper we drilled, the more aggressive they became." "What are they guarding?" Vox asked. "I don't know," Jace admitted. "But it's not just minerals or resources. It's important to them. Sacred, maybe." Vega's voice interrupted. "Captain, the creatures are mobilizing. Energy readings indicate movement toward our position." Vox's blood ran cold. "How many?" "Hundreds," Vega replied. "Possibly more." The room fell silent. They were no longer miners. They were survivors, trapped in the crosshairs of an alien intelligence that saw them as intruders. "Prepare for combat," Vox ordered, his voice grim. "We're not leaving this asteroid belt alive unless we fight." The ship's alarms blared as the crew scrambled to fortify their defenses. Outside the viewport, the dark expanse of the asteroid belt seemed to come alive as the creatures approached, their glowing forms a harbinger of the nightmare to come. And as the first wave hit, Vox realized one chilling truth. They had awakened something ancient, something powerful, and it would not let them escape without a fight. The Orion prospect shuddered as the first wave of creatures struck, their glowing forms visible through the ship's observation deck. Captain Vox gripped the edge of the console, his voice cutting through the rising chaos. "All hands to battle stations. Vega, activate the external turrets." "Turrets online," Vega replied, her synthetic calm a stark contrast to the panic spreading among the crew. The ship's external cannons whirred to life, their barrels swiveling to target the incoming swarm. Bolts of plasma streaked through the void, lighting up the asteroid field as they slammed into the alien creatures. Explosions rippled across the blackness, sending fragments of chitin and bioluminescent fluid spinning into the void. But for every creature that fell, two more emerged. The larger serpentine forms were staying back, directing the smaller drones with uncanny precision. "They're not just attacking randomly," Jace muttered, staring at the tactical display. "They're coordinating, adapting to our defenses." "They're intelligent," Vox said, his jaw tight. "And they're testing us." On the lower decks, chaos erupted as a group of creatures breached the ship's hull. Alarms blared, and emergency bulkheads slammed into place, but not before several of the alien drones slipped through the gaps. The corridors became a battlefield as crew members armed with plasma rifles and improvised weapons fought to hold the line. Torres, the ship's security chief, led a team of Marines in a desperate bid to repel the invaders. "Keep them contained," he shouted, firing his rifle at a drone that scuttled along the ceiling. The creature screeched as the plasma bolt seared through its body, but its momentum carried it forward, crashing into a young ensign. "Ensign Lee, fall back," Torres barked, pulling the ensign to her feet. Another drone lunged toward them, but Torres met it with a point-blank shot, its bioluminescent body exploding in a shower of glowing ichor. "These things are learning our tactics," Torres said into his comm. "We can't keep fighting them like this. They'll overwhelm us." In the ship's science bay, Hannah worked frantically at a terminal, analyzing the alien signals they had detected earlier. She wasn't a soldier, but she knew the key to survival might lie in understanding the creature's communication. "What are you hiding?" she muttered, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The waveforms on the screen pulsed in rhythmic patterns, almost like a heartbeat. Then she noticed something strange. Embedded within the signal was a repeating sequence of tones, almost like a melody. "It's not just a signal," Hannah realized aloud. "It's a language." She activated the ship's translation software, feeding the signal into the system. The AI worked quickly, breaking down the patterns and attempting to match them with known linguistic structures. Hannah watched in awe as fragments of meaning began to emerge. Defend, sanctuary, trespassers. Her heart sank. The creatures weren't mindless attackers. They were guardians, protecting something hidden within the asteroid belt. Hannah hit the comm button, her voice urgent. "Captain, I think I know why they're attacking us. The energy signals aren't just random, they're messages. They're calling us intruders. What are they guarding?" Vox's voice crackled over the comm. "I don't know yet," Hannah admitted. "But if we keep drilling, we're only going to make things worse. We have to stop." "That's not an option," Vox replied. "We're too deep into this operation to back out now." "Then we need to find a way to communicate with them," Hannah said. "If we don't, they'll kill us all." Meanwhile, Jace led a small team of engineers to repair the damage caused by the initial breach. The corridors were littered with the remains of alien drones and fallen crew members. The stench of burned metal and bioluminescent ichor filled the air. "This isn't sustainable," Jace muttered, inspecting the melted bulkhead. "They'll breach us again, if we don't figure something out." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble reverberated through the ship. The lights flickered, and Vega's voice came through the comm system. "Warning. Unknown energy surge detected within the asteroid belt." Jace's stomach tightened as he activated his scanner. The display lit up with readings far beyond anything he had seen before. "This isn't just an attack," he said. "It's a reaction. They're building up to something." The rumble grew louder, and the ship shuddered violently. Through the viewport, the asteroid field began to shift. Massive rocks moved as if pushed by an invisible force, rearranging themselves into an ominous spiral formation. "What the hell is that?" one of the engineers whispered. Jace's mind raced. "They're reshaping the field. It's like they're building a trap." The largest asteroid in the center of the spiral began to glow, its surface pulsating with the same bioluminescent light as the creatures. A beam of energy shot out from its core, striking the Orion prospect and enveloping the ship in a shimmering field of light. "Vega, report." Vox's voice barked over the comm. "We've been ensnared in an energy field," Vega replied. "Engines offline. Weapon systems at minimal capacity." Jace's heart sank. They were immobilized, and the creatures were closing in for the kill. On the bridge, Vox watched as the tactical display filled with incoming hostiles. He turned to Hannah, who had just arrived, clutching a data pad. "You said you could communicate with them," he said. "Now's the time." Hannah hesitated, her mind racing. "If I can amplify their signal through our comm array, I might be able to send a response. But I'll need time." "Do it," Vox ordered. He turned to Torres, who had joined them, his armor streaked with alien ichor. "Hold the line. We're not going down without a fight." As Hannah worked furiously at her terminal, the ship's remaining defenses sprang into action. The external turrets fired continuously, and the Marines fought bravely to repel the creatures breaching the ship. But the odds were overwhelming, and every moment brought them closer to annihilation. Finally, Hannah shouted, "I've got it!" She hit the transmit button, sending a modulated signal into the asteroid belt. The effect was immediate. The creatures froze mid-attack, their glowing bodies dimming slightly. The massive serpentine forms hovering outside the ship paused, their movements halting as if listening. "They're responding," Hannah whispered, barely daring to hope. But then the largest creature, its massive form dominating the viewport, turned its glowing eyes toward the ship. A deep, resonant sound reverberated through the air, and Hannah's terminal displayed a single chilling translation. "Leave or perish." The message hung heavy in the air, its meaning as clear as the void surrounding them. Hannah stared at the words on her terminal, her heart pounding. "Leave or perish," she repeated aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're giving us a chance." Captain Vox clenched his fists, his jaw tight as he gazed at the pulsating mass of creatures surrounding the ship. "A chance? To what?" "Leave the asteroid belt and give up everything we've worked for." "Captain, they're protecting something," Hannah said, her tone urgent. "We've already pushed too far, and if we don't retreat, they'll destroy us." "It's not a bluff." Before Vox could respond, the ship shuddered again. The glowing spiral of asteroids began to shift, the pulsating energy field intensifying. Vega's voice broke through the tension. "Warning, energy readings are spiking. The central mass is building to a critical point." "What does that mean?" Vox demanded. Hannah's voice trembled. "It means they're preparing to obliterate us." Torres slammed his fist onto the console. "So what do? We can't just walk away from this. The mining operation is critical. If we abandon it, the whole mission fails. And if we stay, we all die," Hannah shot back. "This isn't about mining anymore. It's about survival." Vox paced the bridge, his mind racing. He had spent his entire career pushing boundaries, exploring the far reaches of space, and uncovering secrets long buried. But this was something else entirely. Finally, he turned to Hannah. "Can you find out what they're protecting?" he asked. Hannah hesitated. "Maybe. But I'd need direct access to the central mass. That's where the signals are strongest. If I could get closer, I might be able to interface with their network." "That's suicide," Torres said. "You're talking about walking straight into their trap." "It's the only way we'll get answers," Hannah said firmly. "And it might be the only way to convince them to stop." Vox looked between the two of them, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Finally, he nodded. "We'll give you a chance. But if things go south, we pull you out." "Understood?" Hannah nodded, swallowing her fear. "Understood." The plan was as risky as it was desperate. Using a smaller mining shuttle equipped with a reinforced hull, Hannah would pilot herself into the heart of the glowing spiral. The rest of the crew would remain aboard the Orion Prospect, monitoring her progress and ready to extract her if things went wrong. The shuttle's launch bay was a hive of activity as engineers scrambled to prepare the craft. Jace, covered in grease and sweat, worked furiously to install additional shielding on the shuttle's engines. "You're crazy for doing this," he muttered as Hannah approached. "But if anyone can figure this out, it's you." "Thanks for the vote of confidence," Hannah said with a weak smile. "Just make sure this thing doesn't fall apart out there." Jace gave her a mock salute. "It'll hold. Just don't get yourself killed." Hannah climbed into the shuttle's cockpit, her hands trembling as she gripped the controls. The launch sequence began, and the shuttle's engines roared to life. "Shuttle Alpha 1, you are cleared for launch," Vega's voice said through the comm. "Good luck, Dr. Nakamura." The shuttle shot out of the Orion Prospect, its reinforced hull cutting through the dense field of asteroids. Hannah's heart raced as she guided the craft toward the glowing spiral, its pulsating energy growing more intense with every passing moment. As the shuttle approached the central mass, Hannah's instruments went haywire. The energy readings were off the charts, and her comms crackled with static. But amidst the chaos, she could feel it, an intelligence, vast and ancient, reaching out to her. Come on, she whispered, adjusting the shuttle's frequency.
Talk to me?
Finally, the static cleared, and a deep, resonant voice filled the cockpit. It wasn't speaking in words, but in pure thought, a cascade of images and emotions that flooded Hannah's mind. She gasped as the vision unfolded. She saw a thriving alien civilization, its people living in harmony with the asteroid belt. They had harnessed the energy of the asteroids to sustain their world, creating a delicate balance that had lasted for millennia. But then came the humans, drilling and mining without regard for the consequences. The balance was shattered, and the creatures were awakened, guardians programmed to protect their home at any cost. Hannah's eyes filled with tears as the vision faded. She understood now. The creatures weren't monsters. They were protectors, defending a world that humans had carelessly endangered. I see you, she said softly. I understand. The voice in her mind shifted, its tone less hostile now. But the message was clear. Leave. Restore balance. Or perish. Hannah swallowed hard. I'll tell them. I'll make them understand. Just give us a chance. The energy field around the shuttle flickered, and Hannah felt the pressure in her mind ease. The creatures were giving her the opportunity to return. Back on the Orion prospect, Vox and the crew watched anxiously as the shuttle reappeared on their sensors. Cheers erupted when it docked safely, but the mood turned somber when Hannah stepped out, her face pale and her expression grave. They're not our enemies, she said, addressing the bridge crew. They're protectors and we're the threat. If we don't stop mining, they'll destroy us, and they'll be right to do it. Are you sure? Torres asked, his skepticism evident. Hannah nodded. I saw their world, their purpose. We've disrupted their balance, and they're fighting to survive. If we keep pushing, we'll only provoke them further. Vox's face was unreadable as he processed her words. Finally, he nodded. We'll withdraw. Vega, prepare a transmission to Central Command. Inform them that the operation is being suspended indefinitely. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief and relief. For once, humanity would retreat, choosing understanding over exploitation. As the Orion prospect powered up its engines and began its slow departure from the asteroid belt, Hannah gazed out the observation deck. The creatures watched them from a distance, their glowing forms a reminder of what had been lost and what could still be saved. The balance had been restored, but the lesson was clear. Some boundaries were not meant to be crossed. The Orion prospect moved steadily out of the asteroid belt, its engines humming with subdued power. On the bridge, Captain Vox monitored the long-range scanners, his jaw set in a firm line. Hannah stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the pulsating mass of creatures that had begun to retreat back into the shadows of the belt. We're clear for now, Vega announced, her voice strained but steady. No signs of pursuit. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the crew. But Hannah's unease lingered, her mind racing with fragments of the vision she'd experienced in the aliens' presence. The enormity of what they had uncovered weighed heavily on her. This isn't over, she said, breaking the silence. They're letting us go, but only because we're leaving. If anyone else comes back here, they won't, Vox interrupted, his tone resolute. I'll make sure Central Command understands the risks. Hannah hesitated. And if they don't listen? If they decide the resources are worth the risk? The captain didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to the viewing port, watching the asteroid belt grow smaller in the distance. Then it'll be up to us to stop them. The respite was short-lived. An alert blared through the ship, and Vega's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, we've got incoming. Multiple signatures closing fast, human ships. Hannah and Vox exchanged a look of horror. They rushed to the bridge, where the main display showed a fleet of mining vessels converging on the asteroid belt. The lead ship bore the insignia of Titan Industries, one of the largest mining conglomerates in the solar system. What are they doing here? Hannah demanded. We didn't send any transmissions. How did they know? Torres grimaced. They've probably been monitoring our movements. Titan's got spies everywhere. The bridge erupted in chaos as the crew scrambled to make sense of the situation. Vox slammed his fist on the console. Damn it. They're going to provoke the creatures again. We have to warn them. We won't reach them in time, Vega said. They'll be in the belt before we can intercept. Hannah's mind raced. We don't have to intercept them. We just have to stop them from entering the belt.
How? Torres asked.
Short of blowing them out of the sky, I don't see how we stop a fleet that size. Hannah's eyes narrowed. The creatures control the asteroid belt. If we can activate the energy field, we might be able to block the fleet's path. That's insane, Torres said. We'd be risking our lives, again. It's the only chance we have, Hannah insisted. She turned to Vox. Captain, you saw what they're capable of. If Titan enters the belt, it's a death sentence for everyone. Vox hesitated, his gaze lingering on the incoming fleet. Finally, he nodded. Do it. Vega, plot a course back into the belt. Torres, prep the ship's energy emitters. If we're doing this, we're going all in. The Orion prospect raced back toward the asteroid belt, its crew working frantically to prepare for the risky maneuver. As the ship re-entered the field, the energy around them began to pulse erratically, a sign that the creatures were still watching. Hannah sat at the controls, her fingers trembling as she accessed the ship's interface. If I can sync our emitters with the field's frequency, we might be able to amplify it. And if you can't? Torres asked grimly. Then we're all dead, Hannah said without looking up. The Orion prospect weaved through the shifting asteroids, the glow of the energy field growing stronger with each passing moment. On the main display, the Titan fleet loomed closer, their engines burning brightly as they prepared to enter the belt. Almost there, Hannah said, her voice tight with concentration. She keyed in a series of commands, and the ship's emitters hummed to life. The first pulse of energy rippled through the field, sending a shockwave that pushed the nearest asteroids into a defensive formation. The creatures responded instantly, their glowing forms swarming around the ship in a coordinated dance. It's working, Vega said. They're reacting to the signal. But will it be enough? Torres muttered. The Titan fleet slowed as the energy field intensified, their pilots clearly wary of the sudden shift in the asteroid belt's behavior. On the bridge, Vox opened a channel to the lead ship. This is Captain Vox of the Orion Prospect. I'm ordering you to turn back immediately. The asteroid belt is inhabited by intelligent creatures. Any further incursion will result in catastrophic loss of life. The response was immediate and defiant. This is Commander Brandt of the Titan Endeavor. Stand down, Captain. We're here under direct orders to secure the sector. Your claims of intelligent life are unsubstantiated. Hannah grabbed the comm. They're not unsubstantiated. If you push any further, you'll provoke them. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Dr. Nakamura, I presume, Brandt said, his tone mocking. Your warnings are noted. But we've come too far to turn back now. They're not listening, Hannah said, slamming her fist on the console. We need to escalate. Vox gave a grim nod. Do it. Hannah adjusted the emitters, sending a concentrated burst of energy into the field. The creatures responded with a massive surge of power, their forms merging to create a towering barrier of light and energy. The Titan fleet halted, their ships dwarfed by the sheer scale of the phenomenon. Brandt's voice crackled over the comm, now laced with panic. What is that? What have you done? We've shown you the truth, Vox said coldly. Turn back or face the consequences. For a moment, there was silence. Then, one by one, the Titan ships began to retreat, their engines flaring as they fled the asteroid belt. Hannah slumped in her seat, exhaustion washing over her. It's over, she said softly. For now. As the Orion Prospect exited the asteroid belt for the final time, Hannah gazed out at the shimmering field of asteroids. The creatures watched them go, their glowing forms a silent testament to the balance that had been restored. Do you think they'll ever come back? Torres asked. Probably, Hannah said. But now the creatures know what we're capable of. And so do we. Vox placed a hand on her shoulder. You saved us, Hannah. And you saved them. Let's hope it stays that way. The Orion Prospect disappeared into the void, leaving the asteroid belt behind, a place of mystery, danger, and fragile peace.